So I guess I've always been interested in the military, I mean, ever since I can remember growing up as a kid in Pepper Hill, South Carolina, or Pepper Hill in North Charleston, South Carolina. Yeah, I can just remember growing up, visiting my grandparents' house there in Pepper Hill, and even my grandparents up in Columbia, South Carolina. It was always just, knickknacks laying around, artifacts, pictures hanging on the wall, stuff kind of like what I got here. Certificates of appreciation and retirement certificates, whatever. Just there was always a presence. I'd go rummaging through the closets and stuff like that, and I would find uniforms and old pilot's jackets and just a lot of paraphernalia, just stuff laying around that always kind of piqued my interest. And my grandfather on my mom's side had tattoos and stuff like that he acquired while he was in the Navy, and I'll kind of go into that here shortly. But I just always had a fascination for it. I remember, I don't know if I really expressed much interest with my dad's side of the family up there in Columbia, but I know there in Pepper Hill, when I would be around my mom's parents, I would always, the commercial was just so great back then. You'd see a Marine commercial and a Navy commercial. I don't remember seeing a lot of Air Force commercials back in that time. It seemed like it was more Marine and Army, and maybe Navy, but definitely Marines always stuck out to me. And I remember always telling my grandmother when I was there that when I grew up, I was going to join the Marines. She was like, "Hell no, you're not. You're not going to join the Marines. The Marines are horrible. There's no way. I will not allow it. I will not let you join the Marine Corps." And she had experience with different branches of the service, and she knew a little bit about them. So she had her reasons why, and I never really inquired as to why. It was just always, they're too tough, and you're gonna, they're always in the front lines, and you're gonna die. If you're gonna do anything, join a different branch of the service. So she really didn't want me to go in the Marine Corps, and I did not. I'll give you a little background on myself, and I apologize, guys, if I clear my throat and maybe not look too good today, but I'm not feeling. I've actually got a fever right now. I'm not feeling my best, but I said I was going to do a Veterans Day podcast, and that's what I'm doing. It is actually November 12th right now, so Veterans Day was actually yesterday, but it's being observed today, and this won't come out until tomorrow, the 13th. But I said I was going to do it. I'm doing it. I found this great picture, by the way, on the internet. I stole it off of Google. Had some images out there. I took it, put it up on the TV. I thought it looked pretty nice. That's the heart hand is kind of the thing people do nowadays. And I thought it was pleasant looking, pleasing to the eye, and the colors popped real nice. And it says thank you, and that's what I wanted to do today, is say thank you. And so a little background on me. You've heard some of this before, but if you haven't listened to previous episodes, then you haven't. So I did end up joining the military. I started off going to college for a little bit when I graduated high school, and that just did not go very well. What just happened? There's some stuff going on. There's some bad weather outside right now too, but I guess that was a car going over, or airplane, something. I don't know if you heard it. So tried college for a little bit, and that wasn't really working out for me. I was more interested in going to the beach than going to class, so I got an incomplete in pretty much all of the classes that I took. And I got an ultimatum from the parents that said, or from my father more specifically, that said, look, you can try college one more time, or you can stay here in the house, and if you don't go back to college, you can continue to live in the house here, but you're going to have to start paying some rent and some utilities, some money out of your pocket. Or you can move out and do things on your own, but we're either going to support you one more time through college, you support yourself here at the house, or you go somewhere else and support yourself. So I ended up staying with some friends down in town quite often, and I don't necessarily think I moved out of the house, but I remember just staying with some friends, Walker, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but they were in the Air Force at the time here at the Charleston Air Force Base, and moved in with those guys for a little bit here and there, and just started seeing the lifestyle that they had, the money they had in their pocket, their sharp uniforms they were wearing when they came home from work, and all the great stories they would have of stuff that they were doing at work, and all the activities they were doing, and I started just asking questions about the Air Force and about the military in general, and they filled me in on the way they felt about it, and they had a very good attitude about it. You know, a lot of people you talk, not a lot, but there's some Debbie Downers out there in every career field, every job that you go to, that are just going to talk shit about it. These guys were very positive about the Air Force. They said how it changed their lives and how impactful it was for them and relationships and their family and just everything. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go down and talk to a recruiter, and I did that. A few days after that, I talked to a recruiter, Air Force recruiter, and they had already taken the ASVAB test. I already had a great score. I was already qualified on the testing. So now they just had me fill out a bunch of paperwork and sent me up to the MEP station there at Fort Jackson, Columbia. The MEPS is the Military Entrance Processing Station. That's where you go to get your physical done and hopefully select a job if you're qualified. So I went up there. I had some issues. I had to come back to my recruiter, and we had to fill out some additional paperwork and submit it. And a couple weeks later, it was approved. I went back up to the MEP station to finish my processing, and that's when I selected a job of physical therapy technician and left the next day for basic training. So I did not enter the delayed entry program. I did not wait around. I wasn't playing around. I said, all right, I'm going to take it. And I actually called my mom. I believe that day, you know, the recruiter said, look, we got this one job, man. If you want it, it's not going to be there long, because all the other MEP stations around the United States and overseas are looking at this same job, and somebody's going to grab it. So you better hurry up if it's what you want. And I said, man, I don't know, man. I got a girlfriend. She was pregnant at the time. So I just really don't think I can leave that soon. And they were like, well, you better make a decision, because you're going to lose this and you're not going anywhere for a while. So I ended up calling my mom and said, look, they got a job, but it leaves the next day. And my mom said, look, you got to do what you got to do. So I did what I had to do, and I told the guy to take it. He jumped on the computer real quick and said, okay, I don't know if I can get it. If it's still there, we'll get it for you. And he grabbed it, got my guaranteed job. I swore into the delayed entry program for just less than 24 hours, and came back the next morning and swore on to active duty and went off to basic training. Did that for 21 years and 4 months as a physical therapy and an occupational therapy technician eventually. And I did a little stint as an Air Force recruiter for 4 years out of Florence, South Carolina. And that's pretty much my background in the military. I retired in 2013, got out and retired out of Las Vegas there at Nellis Air Force Base. Yeah, I had some stints. I was stationed at Valdosta, Georgia, at Moody Air Force Base, and then I got stationed at Shaw Air Force Base to be a recruiter, and actually recruited out of Florence, about an hour away, but I lived on base there with my then wife, who was also active duty as a pharmacy technician. And she went off and got out of the military and went back to school on a scholarship program, an ROTC scholarship, and became a nurse. We did that. Man, the rain is coming down now. And where was I at? So we did that. So we're both active duty, serving our country. She retired as well, a few years after I did, and left Shaw Air Force Base and went to Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. Left there and spent a long time, 6.5 years, at Elmendorf Air Force Base out of Anchorage, Alaska. And then we left there and went to Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. Did a couple tours. Went through Kuwait and Iraq and Qatar. Spent quite a bit of time in Iraq in a medical facility over there, the 332nd Medical Group, living out of or working out of a tent hospital. So retired 2013 out of Las Vegas, and then moved back here to Summerville, South Carolina, and I got a government contract job as an IT guy, or what they called a mobile training technician, MTT, for a project for the Marine Corps, working through SPAWAR. And we pretty much embedded with the Marines and the Navy in in Kuwait and Bahrain and over in Sigonella, Italy and Okinawa and just a bunch of places throughout to support the Marine Corps as they went to the front lines. And we developed a software program that tracked their electronic medical records and their supply system. So we did that, and we would embed with those guys, and we would maintain their computer systems. We provided laptops for them, and the software suite that we designed was on there. It's called the Theater Medical Information Program, and so still continued to serve. Even once I retired from the military, did that for a few years, became the project manager for that project, and then finally decided I had enough, and I wanted to take a different direction. So what's that? 21 plus 3, a little over 24 years of service. I'm not going to make this long, guys, because I'm really not feeling too great, but let's see. I just kind of wanted to give a little history of some of the other people in my family that helped influence, what I did. So my parents gave me a little bit of information here, so I'll just run through this real quick. But my dad did 14 years in the Air Force Reserve, so I want to thank him for what he did. After college, his father, my grandfather, after college at Washington State, my grandfather joined the Air Force as a member of the 14th Air Force. He was assigned to the 491st Bomb Squadron that campaigned in the CBI Theater, the China-Burma-India Theater, during the Second War as a pilot of the Mitchell B-25 aircraft. During this time, he flew 107 missions over the hump. I don't know what the hump is. He didn't describe what the hump is. I should have maybe looked that up, but maybe some of you will know, and you can comment. Send me a message and let me know what the hump is. One of his highlights was piloting Old 59. You can Google search that, on its final mission after an attack on Meza Bridge. This was the 100th mission for 59, and no one could have believed that the Mitchell had flown 100 missions into enemy territory and survived. He was a lifetime member of the Flying Tigers of the 14th Air Force Association. He retired from service in 1965 with the rank of Lieutenant Colonel while at Charleston Air Force Base, and then moved to Columbia, South Carolina, where he taught ROTC at the University of South Carolina and eventually took up a job with the state. My dad's brother, Richard Lamont Dales, he graduated Somerville High School right here in 1964. He went on to Clemson University, where upon graduation he did more graduate work. Then he decided he wanted to be a doctor, so he joined the service program to fund his medical career. After graduation from the Medical University of South Carolina as a surgeon, he stayed in the Army for around 12 years, serving a tour in Grenada, and then spending time at Eisenhower Memorial Hospital. He then decided to go into private practice at Pinehurst Medical in Pinehurst, North Carolina, and continued in the reserves, attaining the rank of colonel. So he surpassed my grandfather, his father. He continued his practice at Pinehurst until a bout with Parkinson's took his life in 2013 at a young age of 66. Man. All right. So that's my dad's side of the family, just the immediate side of the family there. My mother gave me some history on her father. Her dad joined the Navy during World War II at the tender age of 17. He got out after the war and went to work alongside his father-in-law, a World War I veteran, in the coal mines in Bellingham, Washington. He decided that was a bad choice and joined the Army Air Corps. When they split, the Army and the Air Force became two separate entities. He went to the Air Force side. He had a 30 years of service, which included deployments during the Korean War, and he retired as a Chief Master Sergeant, or an E9. My mom's brothers all joined the Navy during the Vietnam fiasco, she calls it, which I guess that's what most people call it. My Uncle Will was a storekeeper, but he still ended up riding shotgun on a barge up and down the river. My Uncle David was a boiler tender and served on an LSD. And if you don't know what an LSD is, I'm going to look it up because I can't remember either, and I'm sad that I can't remember because I was on an LSD multiple times when I was a government contractor, because we went on the MUs, the Marine Expeditionary Units, which included fleet of ships, and LSD was one of them. So let's see what LSD. So I guess I could be looking up a few of these different things, but amphibious. Let's see. What did she say? LSD. Where, man? There's a lot of ships. A lot more than what I. So that's a landing ship dock. There you go. It's an LSD. All right, that's all I'm going to look up on that. So he served on LSD. My mom's two uncles also served in the Navy during World War II, and her mother was a Red Cross nurse during World War II. She wasn't military, but she was certainly an important resource. You know, the Red Cross was huge back then. It still is huge, but back in during the war, man, they recruited everybody they possibly could, and so she served as well, just in a civilian role, but still served nonetheless. What happened to my napkin, man? My nose is running. What is going on? I had a napkin here just a second ago. Where did it go? Where did it go? I lose everything. All right, sorry guys. I'm gonna wipe my nose. I'm not feeling well. So that's kind of the history. My younger brother also served. He joined, I believe, about 4 years after I did. He retired, I want to say in 2015. I think that was the time, November 2015 or so. I'm not going to go into his whole thing. He doesn't want me talking about his stint in the military, so I won't. I will respect his wishes, but he served as well. My older brother Bruce, at one time, when I was a recruiter, actually, was talking about joining the military because he was in restaurant management at the time and just wasn't feeling that anymore, and he's since left there and doing well. But he had passed the age already for me to put him in active duty, but he was still young enough where he could have joined the reserves, and I kind of gave him some information, and he made a decision not to do that. So, but he thought about it, and that's the point. And he, supported us, my brother Kevin and myself and everybody else. So he did his part in a civilian aspect. So I appreciate that as well. That's pretty much the extent. I just want to say thank you to all those guys, past and present, all my family members that have served and inspired me to do the same. Went to an event yesterday at Coastal Coffee Roasters, and I'll just say this and I'll kind of wrap things up. It'll be really short. But went to Coastal Coffee Roasters. They opened up. They're not open on Sundays, but they opened their doors up to the community yesterday. Had a big turnout. A lot of veterans came through. They also had a tolling of the bell with some World War II submarine vets that were honoring lost submarines and submariners. So that was kind of cool. I say cool. I mean, it was sobering. Sobering? Is it sobering? I don't even know what the word is. It's one of those two words. Sobering doesn't sound right. That sounds like something to do with alcohol. But it just it choked me up, and it chokes me up right now thinking about it. I posted a video of it on social media. So if you want to go out to my page, Brian Dale Sr. on Facebook, you can see the video I posted. It was about a 20-minute long dedication to all those guys. It was fantastic. And yeah, the first submarine that they started with, they didn't go in order. Since we're in Charleston, they said, okay, well, we're going to start off with a famous Charleston submarine. So the H.L. Hunley, it's a submarine for the Confederate Marine engineer. Horace Lawson Hunley is who it's named after. It's often just referred to as the Hunley. It was a submarine of the Confederate States of America that played a small part in the American Civil War. Hunley demonstrated the advantages and the dangers of undersea warfare. She was... Why do we always name things she? That's another podcast for another time. Not that I have a problem with it. I'm just curious as to why things are always called a she. A car, submarine, whatever. She was the first combat submarine to sink a warship, the USS Housatonic. Although Hundley was not completely submerged and following her successful attack was lost along with her crew before she could return to base, the Confederacy lost 21 crewmen and 3 sinkings of the Hundley during her short career. So, yeah, they've since made much better submarines than this guy. So here's the history. She was named for her inventor, Horace Lawson Hundley. Shortly after she was taken into government service under the control of the Confederate States Army at Charleston, South Carolina, Hundley, nearly 40 feet or 12 meters long, was built at Mobile, Alabama. Mobile, I think it's Mobile, Alabama, and launched in July 1863. She was then shipped by rail on August 12, 1863 to Charleston. Hundley, then referred to as the fish boat, the fish torpedo boat, or the porpoise, sank on August 29, 1863 during a test run, killing 5 members of her crew. She sank again on October 15, 1863, killing all 8 of her second crew, including Horace Hundley himself, who was aboard at the time, even though he was not a member of the Confederate military. Both times Hundley was raised and returned to service. It seems like after the second one they would have stopped, but I guess it did something on the third try here. On February 17, 1864, Hundley attacked and sank the 1,240 displacement-ton United States Navy screw sloop of war USS Housatonic, which had been on Union blockade duty in Charleston's outer harbor. The Hundley did not survive the attack and also sank, taking with her all 8 members of her third crew, and then was lost. Finally located in 1995, Hundley was raised in 2000 and is on display in North Charleston, South Carolina at the Warren Losh Conservation Center on the Cooper River. Examination in 2012 of recovered Hundley artifacts suggests that the submarine was as close as 20 feet or 6 meters to her target, the Housatonic, when her deployed torpedo exploded, which caused the submarine's own loss. So there you go. And if you want to read more, you can actually go to Wikipedia, which is what I'm on right now. And then they also have their own website, www.hundley.org, and I'll put the link to both of those in the show notes so you can kind of see that. And I'll put the link to the Facebook post in there as well, so you can see the video if you're interested. And that's about it, guys. That's the history of my military career. My sons have decided to go to college, and they have expressed interest in maybe a stint in the military as well, but they haven't at this point. But I foresee them maybe doing something in the future, you know, with their degree, and maybe becoming an officer in one of the branches of service, and I would gladly support that if they did. But yeah, so thank you to all my family members, my ex-wife, all my friends and brothers and sisters that I've known my entire military career. Some of them are still serving. Some of them have since retired, or they just got out for various reasons, whatever. But I want to thank each and every one of them for their service, whether it was 2 years, 4 years, 10 years, 30 years. I appreciate it, and America appreciates it. So until next time, I will bid you adieu. I have a special guest coming in tomorrow, and that will be released on Friday. So, all right, guys, thank you, veterans. Happy Veterans Day, and I will talk to you soon.